My name is Kim Addis. I am the president and founder of Frame of Mind Coaching and the co-founder of the Journal That Talks Back. You have just joined the Frame of Mind Coaching Podcast, and today we're interviewing a very interesting individual who I would call a friend. Someone who doesn't know that he's had a pretty huge influence on my life, but we'll get to that in 1 minute. So I want to stop for a minute and introduce Wally Bressler. Wally, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm actually, you said that, I was like, holy cow, I'm hoping it was a positive influence.
It was a very positive influence. So let's just take everybody back. I used to be in the real estate industry, did a lot of work in that field. And I ended up selling my company years and years ago, 2005. And Wally and I met in 2006, where I was doing a little bit of consulting. At that point, I had started coaching. And I don't know how we met. I think we were introduced through
Jay Kinder.
Jay Kinder, that's right. And we got into some really, really interesting and deep conversations very quickly. But now it's how many years later? A lot of years later.
Yeah, it was like 2008. It was like 8, I think, 8 or 9.
Well, maybe 2000. Well, anyway, a lot of years have passed.
15 years or so, yeah.
15 years have passed. And since that time period, we haven't spoken a whole bunch, but you did write a book. And I want to just share visually with the audience what that looks like. It's called Tragic Hero. And there's a subtitle called Picking Up the Pieces. Amazing book. Whoever hasn't read it should read it. So go buy it.
Thank you.
There you go. So you wrote a book. Why'd you write a book?
It's interesting. I obviously you read the book, so my life story it's an intriguing one. Not unlike a car crash. Your people are intrigued by it. They want to see everybody live, but they're still intrigued by it. What do they say? Even morbid curiosity is curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I spent most of my life living in shame, trying to hide from things, not just from things like my life, but also from people. And it manifested itself in some really negative ways. And I got to the point where I really needed some help. And you read in the book that I was probably a very short period of time away from taking my own life. And I just was like, I can't do this anymore. Really painful. And just by the grace of God and, him reminding me how horrible it was when my dad died and not wanting to leave my 4 children in the same situation my dad did when he left my brother, sister, and me back in 91. I decided I was going to work on myself and, having multiple conversations and unearthing years and years and years of just things that I had pushed down forever. I got to the point where I was so worried about what other kind of people were going to think about me. What if they knew I was sexually abused? What if they knew I blew all that money? What if they knew I cheated on my wife? What if they knew I was a convicted felon, right? Like, what if they knew all that stuff? It was interesting. And I had a conversation and I just was every day like, please don't find out. Please don't find out. It's going to ruin my life. It's going to ruin my job. And I was sitting on my couch and I just was so weird. All of a sudden, like, I had to get it out of me. You know what I'm saying? And you just finally realizing that, once you are radically honest, it takes all the power away of everything that you've ever done. It takes all the power away from everybody and anything anybody could say about you, because once you own it and accept it, it's so much easier to deal with. So I got on Facebook and I spent about 17 minutes spewing my story out. And then I went on my other Facebook page. Then I went on Instagram and then I recorded a video and put on LinkedIn. And I put it everywhere. I was like, I'm just going to do it. And so people were seeing all this and they were responding to it, and I could see the positive impact it was having on people. And I'm like, there's probably a lot of people who have gone through what I've gone through. And I just got to the point where I didn't want other people to have to hit rock bottom like I did. Rock bottom's a bad place. It's a good place if you let it serve you, but I just didn't want people to do that anymore. So I'm like, I'm telling my story. I'm going to let it out there. And I wanted to use it as a way to grow my platform, but also to, let people know that it doesn't matter how long it's been since something happened, or how bad it was, or how instrumental you were or were not in having it happen, that there's always time.
So let's dig in. What is the story? Like, I know for me, there are many kind of layers to this story, and there are multiple apexes in your story. Usually a story has a buildup, an apex, and then a
Yeah.
conclusion. In
Uh-huh.
your case, the story kind of has multiple arches,
Yeah, it
right?
does. Yeah.
Multiple moments. And
Uh-huh.
so, like for me, as I was reading your book, there was one story you told in your book that I was like, wow, like that just made me boil inside. And it was the story of your birthday.
Oh yeah.
And like
It was a tough
tell,
one.
like, you had a tough childhood, you had
Mhm.
a difficult childhood, you had two parents who maybe weren't ideal at parenting. So maybe you can share a little
Mhm.
bit about what that looked like, and start by telling the birthday story.
Okay. Yeah, and I always preface these comments this way, is that most people's parents are not bad people. They're just not great parents. Right. And, I think we're close in the same age. And, here's the thing, like if your parents were born like probably between like, let's say like 1900 and 1950, it was a entirely different world back then. Children
Yep.
should be seen and not heard. A lot, getting whooped, getting hit, what I'm saying? And if you've got an Italian background, I always joke around Italian families, there's three means of communication: food, getting hit, and getting yelled at. And so that's what my life was like. My parents had parents who were Italian backgrounds on both sides, family from Italy on both sides. And but my dad he was kind of a mess because his mom was not a good person. She was mean, what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
she was mean and emotionally abusive and hurtful, physically hurtful. And so that's kind of how he was, what I'm saying? I mean, he had no patience, was a smoker, drank a little decent amount, overweight, very, very, very much a perfectionist. And so the littlest thing set him off, what I'm saying? And I was there I was about my ninth birthday, and not many. I didn't have a lot of friends. My kids were over, we were having fun. It was July. It's middle of the summer, so it doesn't get dark until like 9:30. And I was joking with my dad in front of the kids, and I said, "Why are you fat?" That's what I said. Not great, right? But not like. And he grabbed me and he put me in my bedroom. He says, "You're going to bed for the rest of the day."
And what time
And then
was it at that point?
probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then they basically he let the kids stay, and they had birthday cake and they had the party, and then they were all playing in the backyard, and I was sitting in my room watching kids play at my birthday in my bedroom. And I was in bed so at 2 o'clock in the afternoon until the next morning at like 7, 8 o'clock. And that's it. Nobody came and said anything to me. Nobody talked to me, so it was pretty demoralizing.
Yeah,
But
very
but it was
demoralizing.
but it was just par for the course. I just, not that it's acceptable. And look, I feel my parents tried to do the best that they could. My dad, when I was 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, one of the punishments was to be put to bed without dinner.
Yeah.
And that really sparked a fear of being hungry in me. And it was the beginning of a 45-year binge eating disorder. Binge eating basically is the first half of bulimia. Okay. So
Yeah.
basically it's just, you just don't purge. Right. So binge eating is just, it's bulimic, it's bulimia, but it's just not the purging portion of it.
Yeah.
And so I'm at first grade, I think, I don't know if I tell the story, but first grade, it was snack time, very first day of first grade, snack time. And I'm sitting there and the kids are getting their lunch boxes out for snack. Back then you got handed out a milk. I got my milk, and then I finished my snack, my lunch, and my afternoon snack all right there because I was afraid I wasn't going to eat.
Right.
That I sneaked food, and then, it just kind of took off from there. And, because my dad had such a quick trigger, I couldn't do anything wrong, because if I did anything wrong, even if it wasn't wrong, I would get yelled, I'd get punished, you get hit. In Italian families, you just don't get hit with the hand, you get hit with the belt, you get hit with a wooden spoon, shoes,
Yeah.
whatever. And so then, it was tough because then, at that point, you don't feel like you can go to your parents and anything. And, when you hear from your parents, you can't even ask why, because I told you so. If you don't do it, you're going to get hit, or you're going to be
Yeah.
deprived something, right? And then, I was sexually abused when I was 10, and then found pornography in my dad's magazines when he was 11. And by the time I was 12, I was already engaging in sexual activity, like way more than any person that age should be doing, for sure.
Right.
And it was bullied the entire time. So basically my self-esteem by the time I was 13 or 14 was nothing. Zero. I'm saying? I didn't like myself. I actually hated myself. I was sad. And I think part of the reason my story has apexes is because, and I kind of learned this in working with Kelly, my counselor and therapist, I was basically overperforming to basically run from the shame that I felt.
Right.
Right. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So
Well, like, and again, I mean, I don't know you super well, but I do know you. And my experience of you is like this super dynamic, interesting, intelligent human being, right? Who, I don't know if you were putting on a show, but you were definitely like, you had this element of being able to captivate. And so maybe for you, that translated into performance over the years.
100% crafted specifically to protect me
Yeah.
and to hide the shame that I felt. I mean, sexual abuse is damaging on so many levels, but most importantly, it's damaging at a very deep emotional level, just because we're not, emotionally, we're not ready for that sort of thing. It's a huge, huge cause of depression and anxiety and sadness. And kids, like, when we were kids, nobody was talking about sexual abuse in the 70s. You know what I'm saying? Nobody was talking about physical abuse, child abuse, alcohol abuse. They weren't talking about that stuff. And so,
And who abused you?
an extended family member.
Okay. And so your parents never
Female.
knew. You never said anything.
I wouldn't have known to say anything. My parents never said, "Hey, if somebody touches your body, let me know." Or,
Right.
they never said that. So, I mean, I told my mom when I was 30, and by that time, the damage is done. But what I figured out is that naturally I'm an introvert, because a lot of the things that I do on a day-over-day basis are very much what introverts do. I would find, like, I would go speak at conferences, or I would MC events and stuff like that. And as soon as they were over, I would go and literally pack my car and go to the movies and sit at the movie theater for 3 hours and talk to nobody. Or when I was speaking, as soon as I was done, I would go to my bedroom so nobody could find me. That's just so, but I created this persona to protect myself. So I seemed like a really outgoing guy. And, I performed really well in high school. I got, was outstanding lineman of the year from high school, defensive player of the year for New Hampshire.
Right.
Went to one of the top liberal arts colleges in the country. I lettered at 4 years in football and in track. So if you looked at me from the outside, making $100,000 by the time I was 28, married, 4 kids, if you looked at the outside, but on the inside, I'm, my addictions to sex and pornography and food and money are slowly killing me.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's just talk about, what industry are you in right now? You're in
I'm in the coaching industry, the life and business coaching industry. I do support people, a lot of people in the real estate industry, because I have so many relationships there. But I'm working with people in other industries now, and I'm still doing some real estate coaching. But a lot of what I'm doing now is helping people go and find out why they can't enjoy great lives and businesses at the same time. Right. So you have people who are entrepreneurs, salespeople, sales leaders. And so I kind of, looking at my own experience and the things that I went through to heal myself. I mean, I had call reluctance for 10 years myself. And so I work with people who are salespeople, entrepreneurs, sales leaders, and I help them either identify for themselves or the people they're working with why they're not able to pick up the phone, why they won't get in front of a camera, why they don't reach their goals, why they don't stick to a calendar, all those things, those self-sabotage related activities that are, having them live their life and business fits and starts. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. You have clients. I don't know if you have 1 million clients or 5, doesn't really matter. You have some clients. Presumably they know about your story.
They have to. That's part of the reason. I mean, that's really how I attract most of them, is that I'm, I do free trainings for companies, and I'm like, hey, if you want, and I had the good fortune of coaching during the Great Recession, which is when we met. And, and so I have lots of experience and strategies and whatnot to help people get through tough times. And so I do a 1-hour presentation on how to build a successful pipeline in any business. And then I part of the number 10 and the 10 things to do is how to overcome sales call reluctance. I tell my story, I show my prison ID, and then go from there.
Okay. And do you get any feedback from people? I do want to talk about prison in a minute, but do you get any thoughts or feedback or commentary or an emotional reaction from people who you are working with?
Yeah. So
what's the reaction in general?
It's fun. It's funny. It's interesting. I've been doing this for like 3 years now, you know what I'm saying? And I get the first negative reaction from somebody just last week at Saw the UX, because 99 times out of 100, people are like, wow, I can't believe you went through all that. But I'm also like, geez, I was sexually abused. I was verbally abused. I was physically abused. I
Mhm.
was bullied. You know what I'm saying? And so, right, our brain, believe it or not, our brain remembers everything we've ever tasted, touched, smelled, heard, or seen. Every of the five senses, it stocks it all. And if it's bad, it gets pushed down. So a lot of times when I'm talking to people, their brains are like, "Oh, we did that." You know, and so they identify with
Right.
it. I text messages from people like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." That happened to me when I was a kid. So by and large, it's usually very favorable just because people connect with it, you know.
Yeah. And you got a negative one last week. What was the
I
negative one?
did. I did. You know, some people feel like they need to, you know, make an example out of somebody, you know, and or that
Mhm.
they need to, you know, I don't know how to explain it. Like you did something bad and they feel like they have to be the ones to point it out to everybody else that you did a bad thing. I don't know what that's
Right.
called.
Like they need to add to the shame.
Yeah, right. You know,
Yeah.
they're piling on and like they feel like they're doing their friends a favor. And so you know, these people were supposed to take my class and I told my story. And then you know, the guy's like, hey, I don't want to do your class, no problem. And then I find out that he went and not only did he look up my FBI profile, which is available on the internet to look at, but he actually went and pulled the transcript of my pleading with the federal government in court and
Okay.
saw the transcript of everything that I said.
Wow. Guess he
No,
was really interested in you.
well, yeah, I mean, you know, he's triggered somehow, which is fine. You know, listen, I did it. Okay. I was part of something where money got taken from banks. My business partner lied on $15 million worth of mortgages. I wasn't trying to steal any money, but I was there and I looked like the other way on things and I did stuff I shouldn't have done. So even though I wasn't, you know, actually trying to steal money from banks, I was complicit and then I had to accept responsibility for it, you know?
Right.
So, you know, he went and saw what he needed to see and heard what he needed to hear. He didn't take, you know, most people call me and say, hey, I saw this. What's the truth here? Sometimes I hear from him and I call them and I own it and tell them what happened. He just chose to be judgmental and make the judgment and run with it. So he said, this guy stole money from this and people lost houses. And, you know, he told the side of the story that he wanted to tell. And so I lost 3 pieces of business from it. And it is what it is. It's pretty rare, but you know what? Look, he's entitled to think what he wants. He can believe
Right.
what he wants. You know what I'm saying? And it
So
had
yeah.
zero to do with me. It's got zero to do with me.
Right.
Right? It's
So
got everything to do with him.
of
So
course. So let's kind of dig in. You ended up in jail. What did you do?
oh no,
Explain it in a way that people could understand.
I I went to prison. I did not go to jail.
Okay. I don't know. What's the difference?
So prison is like state prison or like you know county jail or something like that. Like so jail is state prison, and it's you know usually in that kind of thing, you usually don't end up spending your full sentence there, right? You can
Okay.
get out early. They commute sentences all the time. It's usually pretty crowded. Usually there's individual cells you're in, right? So I went to federal prison. I went to a federal prison camp. And so for federal prison, there's like super max, and then there's max, and there's high, then medium high, then low, and then there's a prison camp. So fortunately, and I say fortunately, I was in a prison camp, no fence around the outside. Okay. And you know, you sleep in a 6 by 8, you know, cinder block cell. And there's no door on it. It's just an opening. You got a bunk beds, a couple lockers, a small little metal desk, but you serve on average 85% of your sentence. Okay. And it's a lot different from that standpoint. And whatever happens to you on a federal level usually will stay with you for the rest of your life. State, you know, for instance, like federal convicts or federal, you know, ex-felons or felons or what they call ex-offenders, like I'll never be able to get a gun. I'll never be able to vote. It may be hard for me to get a passport, right? At the state level, after you served your time and gone past, you can get your gun rights back in the state of Texas. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So it's a little harsher, you know what I'm saying, as far as the punitive effect of it long term. So anyway, you know, in 2005 and 6, I was doing some real estate investing with a kid I knew from high school, a guy. I mean, we knew each other in high school, and I wanted to do real estate investing, and he worked for one of the bigger mortgage companies back then. And so we started buying people's houses and paying off their debt and helping them get their credit back in order. Right. So the deal was we're going to take the equity from your house. We're going to give you money to pay off your debt. You can work on your credit. And then in 2 years, you take care of your credit. No problem. But we'll give you money back. Well, what happened was people were not paying their bills, even though we made it so they could. And so um, my former partner, in his inimitable wisdom, decided to stop paying the mortgages on their houses.
Mm.
And even though we helped them, which we did, they were mad because they were going to lose their house, even though they didn't do
Right.
what they did. So they called the FBI. Well, what I found out afterwards is that not only was he not paying their bills, He was going to casinos and he was buying cars and he was giving his family money and he was basically using the money for his own benefit.
Right.
So that's a no-no. And so, in 2008, he called me, he said, the FBI wants to talk to us. And I go, why does the FBI want to talk to us? He said, well, it looks like we did what we were doing was illegal. And I said, Mike, we talked to attorneys and, he's like, well, so anyway, I hired an attorney and, and this was in October 2008 and went through the entire process. And it took 5 years, but, in August of 2013, August, I went up and I got sentenced to 14 months in federal prison. My attorney did a great job because when we first started talking, he says, for what you did here, you probably could go to prison for as many as 14 years.
Wow.
He's like, I don't think you did anything that would warrant that. But if we miss one signature, if we miss one piece of paperwork, you're looking at 14 years. And I'm like, my kids are going to be adults by that time. I'm saying my youngest would have been, God sakes, 21. So I'm like, let's not do that. So I went to prison and I ended up spending 366 days there. I got my statutory good time. Sorry about my nose here. And but I didn't get halfway house because the halfway houses are so full. And in 2014, so 366 days later, I came home.
Okay. So what was it like to live in prison?
In that it was a camp, it wasn't as bad as other places are.
Yeah.
But it's not fun and it's not meant to be fun. In the outside world, you're innocent until proven guilty. In prison, you're guilty until proven innocent. So even if, like, let's just say, like, this stuff gets smuggled into prisons all the time and it comes in through the camp because it's the easiest way to get in. So there's cigarettes, there's alcohol, there's telephones, there's all kinds of stuff you're not supposed to have. So if you're celly, you're called your celly, but if the guy you share your room with gets caught with something, or if there's something that's in the shared space, you both go to the SHU, which is solitary confinement, until either one person owns up to it or they can figure out who did it. Right. So, and it's about 80% drug related deals. Okay. The recidivism rate for federal prison for the drug related folks is over 80%, 10% for white collar folks. And, you had to live in this barracks, for lack of a better word, dormitories, and and there were showers, there were bathrooms, there was a game room, there's an outdoor track, some fields and stuff for exercise, and then there were jobs, and most of the jobs paid somewhere between 12 cents an hour and $1 an hour, and you had a job. So they turned the lights on at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. You pretty much had to have a job. They didn't want you just loafing around unless you were injured or something.
What job did you have?
I got to clean tables in the cafeteria for 12 cents an hour. So,
and what did you do with your 12 cents an hour?
It was put in my account and was given towards restitution. So, and then, you could, Saturdays and Sundays are pretty much open. You can walk around, do whatever you want. I mean, you could walk around, do whatever you want at any time. As long as you were done your job, you could do whatever you wanted. There wasn't a lot of, I helped some people learn English. There were some men there that were 50 that hadn't spoken English. Did a lot of reading, exercised a lot, lost a bunch of weight, and just, bided my time. And, like anything else in life, you get into a routine and just the time passes a lot faster.
Did you do any journaling?
No, I didn't. In fact, part of the problem is that all the problems that I had with every one of them pretty much was still there when I got out of prison.
Yeah.
All the addictions that I still had were all still there when I left because I really didn't deal with them.
So how did you explain to your kids that you were going to prison?
Well, we told them.
What did they say? You said, hi, like, hey, kids, dad's going to prison.
Yeah. So my ex-wife, obviously we're not in a good place because I was unfaithful to her and I was going to prison, and, it was tough for her. And, we took them to a place that we knew they would never go again. So we could tell them the story so that they could never have any attachment to anything sad where they would go. So we took them to a park they would never go to again. And we told them we were getting divorced and that I was going to prison, but at the time it was 13, 11, 9, and 7. So it's a little tough. I'm saying two of them, it really resonated with. One of them, my son, kind of the youngest one, 7 years old, didn't really make much. So, they were taken care of financially while I was gone. And it was tough though. I didn't see them for years. So,
So they didn't see you while you were in prison.
Nope. And my ex-wife was angry at me. And, even though we had made arrangements for them to come see me, she didn't bring them to see me. So it was tough. It was
Did
hard.
she not bring them with her because she didn't want to expose them to a prison setting, or because she wanted to teach you a lesson?
She didn't come either. I think partially because she was mad and partially because she didn't think that they needed to see me in that setting.
Right. So
So
she never came to see you.
nope.
Okay, but at that point you had decided to get divorced anyway.
Actually, I signed paperwork before I left, and I found out on February 14th of 2014 that I was divorced by an email.
And did anyone come to see you while you were in prison?
Very, very fortunate that friends, you want to find out who your friends are, go to prison. Right? Get terminally ill, go to prison, like be really put in a really bad place, And so I had people, guys from church, my buddies, I had people visit me. My closest friends, the people that I knew well that hung around, even though I was a complete, scumbag at the time for a lot of things that I did, So
so then you got out of prison. Did you see your kids after that?
That day, yep.
Okay, and how did that day go?
It was odd, they were kind of unsure what to do. They were happy to see me, but they were definitely, they were nervous. They were all nervous. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it took a long time to make amends. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It for things to be fairly normal, years, because they were young. And so it really impacted them. Plus their mom had to get a job. Imagine going from a place where your dad works from home and your mom's home all day to you don't see your dad for a year and your mom works 14 hours a day and you got to now do your own laundry, cook your own meals, and not have somebody around all the time.
They were forced to grow up.
Unfortunately, yes. The good news is they're all hyper resilient now and they're tough kids and they're super nice and they're it's served them well since we did the best job we could to resolve things when we got home, and Stacy and I co-parent very well now,
Yeah. And what's your relationship with them now?
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah, we have great relationship and very caring and loving, and we've got a Facebook. We've got a chat group and we joke around. I just took them all away for 4 days for spring break. I rented a cabin up near a lake,
Nice.
But it took them a while to forgive me. One of my children, it took them over a year to really let me in and talk to me again.
Yeah.
So it was hard, and then probably up and through high school for two of them.
Yeah. So you get out of jail, you go live at your friend's house, Jay and his wife.
Yep. They let me stay at his place for a while. Yep.
Yeah. What made them feel comfortable with that?
Well, I've known Jay since 2001.
Yeah.
And I was, I worked with Mike and him to grow their business, and we were good friends, and they knew that I was a good person, deep down, even though I made a lot of bad decisions.
Yeah.
Hurt a lot of people. They were loving and caring, and so they let me stay with them for 4 months. And then a buddy of mine was a real estate investor in the area, and he had houses he bought, and he would let me stay in his houses until they sold them, and at a reduced rent, so I could get back on my feet. But when I got out of prison, I had 54 cents to my name. I had no place to live, so I had to live at somebody's house. I'd lost 133 pounds, so I had no clothes that fit me.
Mm-hmm.
I had I still remember this. I think I threw the shorts away, but I had a pair of shorts, and and I was grateful for it because I had them. But it was a pair of mesh athletic shorts, and the lace that was in it was half a boot lace and half of a sneaker lace. And I had that pair of shorts and a couple of t-shirts and a pair of sneakers, and that's what I had. And listen, I think the thing that people have to remember is that when you make a decision and make a bad decision, though, the consequences are out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't thrown into this. I wasn't a victim. I made some bad choices, and that's what happened. But at the age of 2014, so was that 46 years old, and no money, no house, no car, no food, and I had to rely on people for that. So it was a very humbling experience,
Yeah.
I got my,
so now you're on your feet. You're living in your own place.
Yep. I got a great business. Things are going well. I'm about to finish putting my second kid through college. My business is growing, and very blessed. My kids are doing well, and
you've rebounded.
Yeah, very fortunately. And I would say
you went through therapy.
I went for, trying to think here, 3 years, twice a week. Because the one thing people don't realize is that we can't be our own coaches, we can't be our own therapists, we can't be our own counselors, right? We need external thought processes, we need
Yeah.
external prompts, we need somebody to give us information that we don't have to help process things, right? And
Yeah.
that was a hard thing for me. Is number one, I had to accept the fact that I did all the things that I did. And then I also had to look at the fact that I could not help myself. So despite being a real estate coach and a life coach and helping people grow their business and solve problems, like, I would have conversations with my clients during the day, and then I'd have a counseling appointment with Kelly, and she would say something to me, and then I would say something to her. I'm like, I just talked to somebody about that today. And
Right.
she's like, you have to remind you, like, you cannot be that way for yourself. Everybody needs help.
Yeah.
And
So Kelly helped you see the light.
immensely.
Okay.
Immensely. She saved my life, if we're being honest.
That's amazing.
It is.
And where did you get the idea to write it? Oh, well, you told me about that, but you wrote it with somebody named Autumn Jade Monroe. Who is Autumn Jade Monroe?
So she is my ghostwriter.
Okay.
I was comfortable that I could write my book. I've actually ghostwritten 2 books before that, and I've been writing for decades, but I just didn't have the time.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, she wrote it better than I would have ever written it.
Yeah.
And she really wrote very much in my voice. And so we worked for about 3 or 4 months together, maybe 5 months, and she wrote the book for me. And so I told her that I would give her cover credit because that's what she's trying to do to build her business. And so, we're good friends now. She's a good woman.
Okay. Amazing.
Great writer. Yeah.
A great writer. So I have another question for you, an altogether different question. When we met, and I don't remember the time frame exactly, but you were affiliated somehow with the show The Biggest Loser.
I was. Yep. Yeah.
So you're one of the contestants.
Yes. You and I met in 2007 at the NAR conference.
Okay. You know better than I do, but
I'm just saying that's remember. Yeah. So I was on The Biggest Loser in 2006. It was season 3.
Yeah.
And, I lost 116 pounds. So
yeah,
the challenge was that I was, number one, losing the weight for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
Wanted to win money, and I actually gained it all back and then some.
Yeah.
In fact, I gained all the weight back and then another 90 pounds. So
I watch a lot of shows. The Biggest Loser is one, My 600-Pound Life is another. And I really, really think that the premise of their approach is so backwards and so wrong and so damaging.
Yeah, they're fixing the wrong problem.
Well, they're not fixing the problem at all.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So the wrong part of the problem. So, to the show's credit, we did get an exercise program. We did get a very good eating program. We did get a trainer. We also did get a psychologist. There was an on-staff psychologist to work with us if we needed help. The only problem is that it was kind of what do they call like, doctors aren't preventative these days. They're just they're after. It's like they wait until the problem arises and fix the problem that arises, right? They're not preventative, and that's kind of that was it. It was like, oh, you're freaking out, okay, great, well, let's talk about it, right? Because when you lose one of your biggest coping mechanisms, that's when all the Pandora's box opens and all that stuff comes. When really really what we should be working on is what's going on here, because until you fix this, nothing else gets better. And if I may finish, talking with Kelly, she says a lot of people who go through bariatric surgery, whatever style they do, she says a lot of them become alcoholics because, number one, they can't get the calories in that they would get before, and if they do eat too much to assuage that pain, they get sick. So they can get the calories in, then they can get the alcohol in, and they can still make the pain go away without doing it. So a lot of them do turn to alcoholism. So, and there's a significant number of people who actually gain all the weight back after that surgery too. So, I've probably lost 100 pounds. I've got more weight to lose, because I got up to 480. But I'm doing it the right way, which is, working on the inside.
Yeah.
And as I do that, the outside gets better. So
working on the inside. Good.
Yeah.
Wow, it's been amazing. If you had one lesson, one piece of advice, you have a million lessons. You have one major piece of advice to give people who maybe not struggling, maybe they didn't get to the place that you got, but I find me one person who doesn't have a challenge or a struggle. Yeah. What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I can tell you this, it's not going to get better on its own. It never will, because it can't. And if you ever want to be completely happy and at peace with life and to live the life you were meant to live, to have the business you were meant to have, you need to go get some help. You
Yeah.
just be vulnerable enough to get help. And I talk about getting radical, right? Radical honesty, radical, transparency, and then radical taking radical responsibility for yourself.
Yeah.
But at some point, you got to get radically honest and say, you know what, this is not good, right? I'm just not doing well. And these are the reasons I'm not doing well. And then radical transparency is letting people know that, hey, you know what, I'm not bad. I'm not doing well. I did some bad things and I'm sorry about that. And being transparent with people like I did, letting it out and then taking radical responsibility. I mean, look, I'm coaching people and helping them create the lives of their dreams. And here I am weighing 480 pounds and literally killing myself with a bunch of addictions. And
Right.
I had to go and find somebody. I had worked with therapists forever. I just, I met the right one and I was finally ready. And so,
Yeah.
and it's funny because, not funny, ironic, peculiar, whatever we want to say, but I would say for the first 6 months I worked with her, she would end every session with, "Do you want to hurt yourself?"
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "Because if you are, I need to get somebody over to see her." And so there were times when I was like, she would stay on with me until I said, "No, I'm not going to do it," because I did. I mean, because it was painful. It was horrible. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But if you don't go through the work, it's not going to get any better. And unfortunately, and this is what I've learned, is because our brains are self-preservation mechanisms, your brain wants peace, it wants understanding, it wants clarity. So it's going to continue to bring up all the crap that you've been pushing down, so you deal with it.
Yeah.
If you don't, that's when you get serious anxiety, serious depression, you get PTSD, because it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse until you absolutely have to do it. And unfortunately, some people do what I didn't do, but got close to doing, and it just gets so painful they can't deal with it anymore. They don't want
Yeah.
to so they end up taking their own life. And nobody should ever have to do that.
Yeah. And how do you feel now? Like, do you feel like you're over it all? Do you feel like you're dealing with it day by
Yeah,
day?
for being completely transparent, one of the things that I'm still working a lot on, I mean, I'm still, the food, because the food issue
Yeah.
has been around the longest. I still do some battle with it. I go to Overeaters Anonymous, and I'm still working at losing weight and exercising. I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit I needed help, and so that's been helpful. And the other thing is, I mean, like, I don't watch pornography anymore. I don't have random sex with people. I have no desire to do that. I'm much better with my money now. I always have money in the bank, where before I was making, $200,000-300,000 a year, and I was living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
So those three things are good. But the other thing is, I don't know if you know much about sexual abuse, and I've learned it myself, when somebody sexually abuses a child, they either go and have sex with everybody for validation, which is what I did. If you were willing to have sex with me, that told me that you thought I was worth something, even though it was just
Yeah.
sex. Or
Yeah.
they run away from it completely. So for me, every relationship I had, started with sex as soon as possible, and I didn't hang around. And because I was emotionally, really emotionally unavailable, I've never had a really good relationship with a woman before, and I'm gonna be 55 in July. So I know I can now. I've done the work, right? But I'm just saying, I'm gonna go basically be a 16-year-old, I'm saying, as a 55-year-old man having a relationship with somebody and learning how to love and be loved. So those are probably my two biggest challenges right now,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Well, you've come a long way, huh?
yeah, no lie. And I'm
Yeah.
so grateful you
So
reached out. Yeah,
let me wrap up by sharing your impact on me. How's that?
I would
I
love to hear.
remember when we spoke, I told you about I was timing is weird for me, but I had in the past worked with a coach, and I was telling you about my coaching experience and how weird and bizarre it was. I was working with a coach who he would say to me things like, I don't want to hear your stories. Like, don't tell me any of that. And he would talk a lot, but I found what he was saying was so different than anything I've ever heard before. I remember like holding the phone super pressed to my ear, making sure I didn't miss a word. Um, but anyway, I remember telling you the story of this coach I was working with, and you said, hold on a minute, I have something for you. I want to give you my book. You gave me a book. And that book was a book by Esther and Jerry Hicks, called Ask and You Shall Receive.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, Ask and It Is Given.
Yep, Ask and It Is Given. Yep.
Ask and It Is Given.
Abraham.
And I thought it was like the weirdest book in the world in the beginning, right? I'm like, why is he giving this to me? But then I realized, like, once I read the book, that the principles they use in the book are really, in my mind, they resonated tremendously. And to a great extent, a lot of my own coaching is informed by those principles. And you had no idea that you left that mark on me.
Oh, that's amazing. I appreciate that. And I know you've left your positive mark on thousands of people. You've had, how long have you had Frame of Mind coaching now? It's got to, what, be a decade now, close to it?
18 years.
Oh, 18 years. It started before that. But did you start advertising it before? I didn't think you were doing it in 6 when we met.
I was doing it in a slightly different way, like things evolve over time.
Yep.
But yeah.
Okay,
years.
well, that's great. Yeah, so you've definitely had huge impact on people. Well,
yeah, I also think your timing is a little funny, but anyway,
I think it could be.
I think we met earlier than that. But
we could have.
Yeah, but it's been amazing. I never forgot. You've left your mark. I always kind of kept my eye on you from the side, saying, what's up with Wally? What's going on? I hope he's doing well. I'm sorry to say that there was a period in time where you really weren't doing well, and I'm sorry I was only on the sides.
You wouldn't have known because I wasn't going to let you know. It's funny because and thank you for sharing that. That touches my heart. Thank you so much for that. It really does. It's funny because and I say funny, it's not funny. It's just ironic. It's peculiar. It just seems, I just say the word, but when I was telling people my story, when I finally, told everybody everything, people were like, I had no clue. Like I could not tell. And because I wasn't going to let you know. Right. I mean, I couldn't, because I was so ashamed. And so I just, you didn't know when I was in pain. I mean, I was a sad, angry person. And after my dad died when I was 23, I pretty much thought I was going to die every day for the better part of 28, almost 30 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, but anyway, that's awesome. I'm
hard way to live. Hard way to live.
No doubt. No doubt. I was so grateful that you reached out to me, or you connected with me. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
So for those of you who are listening, 2 things. Number 1 is pick up the book. Again, here it is. It's called Tragic Hero, and it's written by Wally Bressler. So look it up. It's on Amazon, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep, on Amazon. Take a look. It's a really good, easy read and quite poignant. So take a look at the book. And the second thing is, if you are in sales in any way and you're having your own call reluctance and you're struggling to grow your sales, reach out to Wally. Maybe he can give you a little help with that too.
Yeah, if I may, one of the things I've committed to doing is being willing to meet with anybody for a half hour for no cost, just to kind of help them identify where it comes from, because I think a lot of people don't realize how what happened when they were a kid impacts what they're doing now, and things, even, really, like, you don't have to have a complete train wreck of a childhood like I did to have something that have happened that could have seemed so insignificant at the time, but compounded over the time period of your life to the point where it's this like giant sequoia tree that's preventing you. So may I just share my website? Is that okay?
Yes, please do.
If you go to triggersalessystem.com, it's right up there. My calendar's there. You can go in and grab a half hour on my calendar. And if you want to find out why, for some reason, you're not able to get around whatever this block is, let's talk about it.
Okay. Amazing.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
And hopefully we won't lose touch again.
No, for sure. Let's not.